very boring software, meaning payroll. You just don't want to mess up nobody's payroll, right?
Many thousands of people to just a handful of people.
So, leadership is pretty much similar or the same. Starts with you. And it
Yeah.
starts with me, right? It's not feeling very, very vulnerable. I was exposing myself quite heavily.
Today's guest is Egil Østhus, co-founder and CEO of Unleash, a Norwegian open source feature management platform used by teams at companies like Wayfair, Allianz, and T-Mobile. Unleash has grown to over 40 people and raised more than $16 million in funding over the last few years. Before founding Unleash, Egil was VP of Engineering at Visma, a massive European SaaS company with over 6,000 developers. So he's seen both sides, leading transformation inside a corporate giant and building a high-growth startup from scratch. In this conversation, we talk about what changes and what stays the same when you go from big company to small, from corporate to startup. Egil shares how he and his team built a culture of trust, humility, and frugality, and how that sometimes made them a little too cautious. He talks about learning to adapt his leadership style, how he balances coaching with decisiveness, and how he's tried and sometimes failed to import corporate processes into startup life. We get into remote work, loneliness, and how he's learned to show vulnerability as a founder, and why that's one of the most powerful tools a leader can use to shape culture. Let's jump in, starting with how Egil discovered the problem that led him to co-found Unleashed.
Well, today I founded and run a small startup or a scale up. It's called Brick Software. We sell Unleash, which is a feature management platform. So very short. Feature management is a tool developer are using together with product management to release or decouple a release to production to release for customer, meaning I can put my source code in production, but I can decide at a later time, who is going to see that new feature. Is it going to be 100% of the population, 50% of the population, or the full population of your end user? So quite handy tool to have in these software days, obviously. So prior to starting and funding my own company together with my co-founder, I was in corporate world. So I came from a European-based company called Visma. I tend to say it's Visma creates very boring software, meaning payroll, accounting, HR systems, which is sort of not the most interesting software to build, but it's super critical and really crucial for everybody because, you just don't want to mess up nobody's payroll, right? So I was in this corporate, having a super great corporate life. I was VP of engineering, working with products, and very short. Visma is a large SaaS company. I think there is like 5,000-6,000 developers when I left.
So while you were there, you were obviously working with software development and things like that. So this is
100%,
Unleashed is a very topical thing for you.
And I was sort of asked to go down and do the full DevOps transformation with that company. So I have a 3 or 4 months approval cycle before you can turn anything on. So that was sort of an catch-22 for me. We all knew and we all know the benefits of going to production at any time. So they put a lot of risk mitigation strategies in place, which is delaying and sort of double checking and triple checking, rather than sort of doing what is difficult and do that more often to train to improve, that we were sort of saying that this is the way to go. So that's sort of where the feature management came into play for me. So like, this is an eye opener. This really creates this benefit for me to do what I need to do. At the same time, sort of how this stakeholder management with my customer is sort of building trust over time, which is what you want to do, right?
Yeah. So then you started Unleash with your brother, and this became a piece of software that helps solve that problem and enables people to release and then control and do controlled releases and all that sort of stuff and turn features 100%. On and off for different populations.
Yeah.
So that was a big change from the corporate world. You're going from this large corporate, many thousands of people to just a handful of people in 2019. But did you find that challenging?
I did find that, I would say, challenging. I find that also some of my key takeaways is, leadership is pretty much similar or the same. But of course, there is different techniques, different type of things you want to apply at different stages. Maybe I can also share some of what felt like a success. So the first day, two things we did. Number one, we decided we need to build a very strong culture. So we sat down and said, what is the type of company we want to build, right? So define the values and sort of start building what does those values mean and all of that. So and that's still with us, and that's really strong. And that's sort of when you have that really kind of on the forefront of your head, it just increases in power, if that makes sense in English. The
Yep.
second thing we did was sort of, okay, coming from corporate, cost controlling is something that is definitely on your top of mind. So we built a kind of a forecast for, okay, well, what are we spending? What is this money look like?
Yeah.
12 months down the road, and sort of have this sort of cost control mindset, which is very unheard of in startup world, I would say. Sort of, sorry, yeah.
I was just going to say, at what stage was the company at this point in time? This was like not 2019, it was pre-funding. So it's 2019, 2020?
Yeah.
And you had like a handful of people, just like...
Yeah, so we were, myself and my co-founder, my brother, even before we had a core team in place.
Right.
So, and I think in retrospect, it sort of led to two things. It's great to have the cost control because you know where your money is spent, and you know that you have money, and you're not running out of money, which is sort of my responsibility as CEO. The counter side to that is also because of culture, and when you start building culture, culture is about a lot of habits that you do every day. I would say that is one way to describe culture. So everybody's sort of really instilled with, we don't want to spend money that isn't really giving us a return. And at the same time, as a startup, you need to take some bets, right? You need to put some money in place to see if it works. So maybe that is also, in retrospect, maybe I've over pivoted towards kind of the cost control side, which is good in the sense that we definitely know where we spend money. At the same time, I see this sort of risk-averse mindset instilled in everybody's mind, saying, I don't have a clear return of this investment, so I'm not sure we want to spend this money. So that's sort of a risk-averse. I wouldn't say a lot of risk-averse, but it's sort of every now and then, that is something I observe, and it's sort of, you need to go in and sort of just saying, okay, it is actually allowed to spend this money because we need to take this risk. It's sort of, but I'm not sure if it's if it was a mistake or not. It's I think it's in retrospect, it was good in hindsight because the macroeconomics have changed dramatically since we started. So
that probably set you up well for the post-pandemic crash.
100%. Cost of capital has changed a lot, so it allows we are in control of our own destiny, which is great. But then again, you can always start thinking about this opportunity cost. What if, right? And you never know.
So would you say when you're going through this process, there was initially this sort of reluctance to spend money and just very conscious,
and it still is.
conscious process and so on,
Yeah.
and then you sort of tried to push it to be a bit more risk tolerant.
Yeah.
And then you realize, then presumably after that, then you had a bit of a capital crisis, and so you then had to sort of come back again, and you've been able to navigate these changes. Is causing this change, like a lot of people talk about changing culture in companies, like how do we go about changing culture? When you're doing this, like, you know what you want to do, what's the key action that you think worked for you in making this change one way and then the other way and then back again, you know?
Yeah, I love your question. And I think this comes back to what is a company culture, and as a leader, can you actually build and create the company culture? And I think that it's in most leadership type of conversation, there is seldom a yes or no answer. There is always possibly yes, possibly no. So what is culture? I think that culture is basically, as I said, a lot of those habits is what we're talking about, what we're doing, what we're not talking about, what we're not doing. The story we tell to our friends. It is sort of, the quote is sort of, it's just how we do things around here.
But how do you go about changing how we do things around here?
And how do you sort of start building that? Because first you need to understand what is culture, and then you can start. So what I say to what I always been telling my peers and direct reports and my management teams is, we need to understand what type of culture we want to have. We need to be very vocal about that. Meaning we need to be, or not vocal, but we need to be very clear for ourselves what are the behaviors that we want to foster and what are the behaviors we want to kind of course correct. And we need to start with that in our team. So I'm seldom going out and saying, hey guys, all of your ICs that is so in doing the daily work, this is what you need to do. I start with my team, and it starts with myself. So I'm having this sort of talk to my team, and it always comes back to this one slide where it's sort of, it's myself looking myself in the mirror and say, it starts with you. and it
Yeah.
starts with me, right? So if you want to have a trust, trust is one of our values. So what does trust mean? It means that I trust that you are a skilled worker to come up with the best solution. And if that is the culture I wanna create, it's an obvious example, but if you are coming with a proposal and I'm saying no, that's not how I'd like to do it, I want to do it this way, and I may have good reasons for that is the better answer, but that doesn't foster the culture I'm trying to create.
Yeah.
I think it's
So what do you do instead in that situation? Like when
so
someone comes to you
so
thinking you think this is a terrible idea, what do you then do?
well,
What did you do?
I think that as a leader, you need to listen more than you speak. And I find also that you need to ask more questions than tell.
Yeah.
And actually, when you go into it, particularly in large organization, and the best leaders I work with, they tend to ask a lot of questions. They don't tell.
Yeah.
So when you are coming with me with a terrible idea, and I want to kind of face that, I need to start asking you some questions. Did you think about that? What if this is the context, or what if this happens? What do you think that will cause? And did you sort of consider this other consideration, or have you taken this into account?
Mm.
And with empathy, because if you ask questions in a way that sort of you are stupid and go away, you can feel that in how you interact with the person. But if you come from a position of respect and that you want this person to really be great, I think that the question that you ask is sort of more as a coaching approach rather than saying you didn't do this well enough, go and do it one more time.
I was going to mention that because I'm actually at the moment I do executive coaching, but I'm also actually studying executive coaching as at Henley Business School, and a lot of the content there is really about respecting the person and how do how do you let go of your own beliefs? And as a coach, obviously, as a professional coach, I'm not in the kitchen, right? So I am by nature of the case not responsible for the result.
Yeah.
You as a CEO, we often talk about like the CEO role or the leader, the manager role, the leader role.
Yeah.
And coaching mindset is really helpful. But at the same time, you are deeply involved and the result is your result, right? How do you separate yourself from it? How do you deal with the situation where you feel like, you really want to tell them something, or you ask a question and they've had a realization, or you've got through, but they haven't quite got there.
Yeah.
They haven't quite got to the point. What do you do in that situation that balances growing that culture and the coaching
Yeah.
mentality?
It's a good question. I think maybe this is where running a smaller team difference for a large organization. A large organization usually you have more time. At a smaller company, you need to kind of move fast, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously at some point in time, it's sort of if by challenging responding with questions doesn't really take you to where you need to be fast enough. Also, you need to sort of step up and just say, okay, I think this is the way to go because of, and sort of cut through the noise, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And I would say also, I think the danger here is to say that, well, as a leader, you always need to ask questions. You should never show the direction because you are the one that is responsible for making sure there is progress, making sure that you are aligned, making sure that you are. So it's always this balance of sometimes you just need to kind of cut through the noise and say, this is how we do it. And yes, there has been a lot of debate. Yes, there are multiple options.
Yeah.
At the same time. And I think actually that is a good thing that we are sometimes seeing in our organization, that we have a lot of really smart people, but we have a lot of analytical people, meaning they want to explore, they want to go to details, they want to kind of seek more information.
Yeah.
And also if you want to, sometimes that is okay. But at the same time, that takes a lot of time, and we don't have time. Time is maybe our most valuable asset, right? So I would say it's a delicate balance, and actually there is one method I keep coming back to as a leader. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's called social styles. It's one of many ways of what type of person are you and how you act. So right. So basically, it's through a 360 survey, and there's a lot of books that are written about this. You can kind of put everyone in 4 different quadrants or like categories.
Uh-huh.
And the theory behind it is that this is sort of core to your personality, and every quadrant is equally good. It doesn't say that you need to be in this in order to be a CEO,
Yeah.
or you need to be that to be a CEO. It's sort of, these are the core characteristics of how you are perceived. That is important. It's not who you are, but how you are perceived by your surroundings. So that's the one dimension of that. The other dimension of that is saying, when you interact with a person in this category, this is the type of interaction that this person excel from.
Can you tell me what other categories or what?
Yeah, so you have the analytical guy, that's the one quadrant. You have the driver, which is sort of the action oriented, that is sort of just moving forward. And then I can't remember what is the third. It's
expressive and amiable.
It's sort of, sorry,
expressive and amiable. Is that right?
Yeah, expressive, exactly. It's sort of very action oriented, but very kind of extrovert. So the driver is more introvert, action oriented, and then it's extrovert, action oriented, and then it's the ambial, which is sort of people first. And so I'm a typical driver. I need to see execution. I need to see progress. And when I have one person on my team, which is an ambial, which means very much empathy for people. So for this person, if the person thinks that not everybody in the team is okay, that person cannot get anything done, because that is so important, right? Yeah. So in interaction with her, I need to make sure that, are you okay today? And I need to tell, okay, I have had a good day, or I'm feeling a bit lonely on my home office. I have no problems with that. I talk to my wife. I talk to my friends. But this is how I feel. So you can sort of put that to rest before you go into the action move. And it's a very strong theory or method, because it also tells what are the typical behavior that you'd expect to see when these people are under stress, meaning under a lot of pressure. And it also been a very useful tool of understanding where do you kind of, as you said, when you know how to act, when you need to have something to happen, because you need to adapt the styles to who you work with, and what are the core ways of operating as a person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, it sounds like a very conscious act of acting.
It is. And
use the word acting. Right?
I would also say, before I started to really understand this, I remember one very good example. I was with my management team, and I did this horribly wrong, right? I was in my management team. We were sort of setting out, that was in my Visma days in corporates. I was sitting in this management team. We were sort of saying, this is the strategy, this is the direction. Now we're sort of building the action plan. We are like, I was really ticking. I was super excited, because everything just go. And we had a small break, and my HR director came to me and said, well, are you okay with some feedback now? And I said, well, sure. This is going great, right? And she was saying, nobody is understanding a shit of what you're saying, because everybody is just trying to figure out what is happening in there, and nobody dare to speak up because you are the manager.
Yeah.
So I think you need to slow down a bit and make sure that everybody is aligned, because this is going to go so badly for you guys if this is not really kind of, if you don't get everybody onto the same page. And so we basically, based on that, I trusted her. She's a great HR person. And I said, coming back to the meeting, I was saying, this person has some feedback to me. Is that okay if that is shared in public? And I allowed her to tell in public, and everybody's like, nodding. I can recognize this.
Wow.
So we said, okay, let's take 2 steps back and go through this step again. And of course, it felt, as a person, it feels like maybe a mistake, so to speak, feeling very, very vulnerable. But at the same time, coming back to your question about how do you build that company culture, it always starts with myself. If I don't dare to fail loud or fail in public, how can I dare or trust my team to be able to come to me with an error saying, oh, I made this mistake. So it was not a horrible mistake maybe, but it felt like I was exposing myself quite heavily to the team. And it was a very, very good learning experience, I would say, as a leader.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a really interesting one, because it's like the act of doing this is an act of humility of like, I think I screwed up.
Yeah.
And someone else is telling me I screwed up in front of my team.
Yeah.
And I'm asking them to do so. Right.
Yeah.
And then your team's really saying, yes, you did, but I'm not ready to say that. out loud, but I'm glad someone else said it. And then but then it's like, okay, but here's how we rebuild this. And so you go
Yeah.
after that. I presume you went through a different process of somehow of like, how do we actually resolve this? Like,
Yeah,
did you know what you're doing? Because you,
it's sort of going back to sort of what is the context of this? What are we really trying to achieve, and why is this important? Then, and what, how does everybody come in together here to really play their
uh,
particular role in making this happen? And everything was going too fast. I was already everything was as a leader, you tend to kind of go through this process of you think and you think and I think about all of this, and you have sort of played out all the scenarios in your head. So when you get into execution mode, all of that is clear for you, but
yeah,
that process hasn't necessarily been part of the rest of the team. So it may be very very difficult to jump onto that train. And
yeah.
by the end of the day, you are, as a leader, you are measured on the success of what your team deliver and not what you can deliver. So if
Yeah, and even
you know,
none more so than as a founder, right? Where you're, it's not even someone measuring you; it's just the success is dependent on the team,
it is
and
always
yeah, yeah, yeah,
in small startups and larger corporates. That's always the case, and you are never better than your team, and the team is more important than every individual. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
yeah,
I know you talked a little bit about this situation, which is at Visma with a larger organization.
yeah,
And so but then you made this transition as into leading the small organization.
yeah,
I'd love to explore, were there situations where you brought something from your large company background that you then have tried to apply in a small, because a lot of people that I work with have had this transition, and
yeah,
it's a constant struggle of like, this is
yeah,
how we do it at Google. And
yeah. I
sometimes it
know.
works and sometimes it doesn't. Have you had that
I know.
experience?
Yeah. No, and I think that is always the problem, and I think in general, how one of my sayings is sort of a junior leader is sort of, you have seen something that works and you're starting to understand the playbook, and you think you can apply the same playbook to every kind of company and situation, and that is definitely not the case before. It's always right. So coming from a large corporate, one of the things that I was super obsessed about when we were starting up as a core team is sort of, okay, we need to have like really documented processes. How do we sort of do the things in our company? And I was really persistent saying, we need to document our process. We need to build up our kind of directory of process descriptions and policies and all of that. Not because I love policies. I mean, it's really boring, but at the end of the day, it describes how we work, and it sort of really
Yeah.
forces you to do. And so I think everybody gets the picture. At the same time, I met a lot of resistance from my team doing so. And I think for good reasons. The pushback was coming from saying, we are not a corporate. We cannot be a corporate yet. We are a small team. We are in this explore phase where we need to understand and really have everything needs to be loose and a bit of chaos. Um, and I was sort of keep pushing and as a leader, and I think this is also good, having experience in the past, that you understand when you are pushing for something, and at some point you can just say, this is how it needs to be, and everybody will heart half-heartedly follow that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't really give you the result you would like, because nobody really believes in it. So for me, that was sort of an area where I decided to back down, because the arguments coming back was sort of fair, and I can relate to them, and they're rational, and it makes sense. And in retrospect, I think, I'm not sure if it was a mistake, or it was not a mistake. I think in retrospect, one of the things that we lost by not doing more thorough processes is the fact that when you do a process, there is a description. These are the steps you take, and this is sort of documentation that you also take along the way. So maybe 6-12 months down the road, the fact was we did progress quite well, so that was great. But at the same time, a lot of the data points that could have been there because of that process were not in place. So I think we lost some time because of that. I think when I rethink it, and sort of the learnings to take of this is sort of, I think I should have been more thoughtful of what are the processes that you want to lock down, and what are the processes that you want to keep loose.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it was sort of saying, okay, everything is equal. We need to just lock it down. We need to just kind of document, and then we need to, and that was sort of coming out over as a lot of wasted time,
Mm.
or maybe there was one or two processes in particular in that sort of customer conversation type of
So you
process.
kind of went from all to nothing,
Yeah,
but you wish you
exactly.
went from all
So
to
there is
some.
something in between,
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I think that is one of my key learnings is, as a earlier stage company, certain areas is more important, and these are where you focus on locking down and be
Yeah.
very consistent. And other parts is obviously it's when you think about it, it's so obvious. At the same time, in the heat of the moment,
I think
it's
in
not.
retrospect, it's obvious, right? But
Yeah,
after you've been
exactly.
through this, you look back and you go, "Oh, obviously, I should have done this. Why didn't I?"
Right.
I'd love to ask you, when you were going through that process of, like, you had this insistence, this belief that we need to
Mm.
document everything, and then there's this pushback. And I presume you understand you were pushing against that pushback for a while, and then you changed your mind, but you went back to zero.
Yeah.
And then with hindsight, you now think, okay, should have been like 10% or 20%.
Yeah.
But when you're going through this and you have that moment of change of mind, like, what is it that causes a leader who has a strong opinion to then go and change their mind? And how do you get comfortable with, I'm not, this is not what I want, but I'll do it?
Yeah. Um, I think the honest answer is I don't really know. But I think also I have a few point of view. I would say I think it's really depend on who you are. I mean, I always say you need to be authentic to what the type of person you are.
Yeah.
And myself, one of the things that I'm really eager, I'm an introvert person, which is something not what you see in a leader. I'm not super introverted, but that's sort of I'm okay not to be in the spotlight. I don't
Yeah.
need to take the spotlight. And the second part of what I really believe in is that the team is always more important than one individual person. So I always see myself as a team member. I definitely understand my role of I need to make the decision, a hard decision, and that's my responsibility to take those actions when needed. But at the same time, I think it's sort of on my end, it comes from a no ego type of mindset.
Hmm.
I'm I play my role, and my role is to make sure we are going in the same direction and that we have the best people on my team, and everybody has the opportunity to be the best and sort of contribute to the bigger picture. And if I need to step down on some of my beliefs in order to allow that to happen, I cannot expect you to do so if I'm not able to do so. And so it
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
back to it starts with me, it also comes back to sort of what I believe in, and we are definitely building a no ego type of company, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. Has this been something that, like, a lot of, you've raised millions of dollars, right? And in terms of in the process as well, it's
Mm,
gotten quite a lot of big successes with Unleashed. Um,
mm,
and a lot of founders, the head gets big. It's not insulting them, but there's a
yeah.
occupational hazard, let's say. Um, what have you found anything that supports you in helping, helping contain the ego or helping to deal with it? What do you do? What in your life helps you do that?
It's a good question. I think the culture. I'm from the Nordics in Europe, which is a very down to earth type of environment. So I think maybe that's an heritage that helps. I think it's also good to sort of be very grounded to have people outside of the startup world.
Yeah.
Friends that is sort of doing different type of jobs. Be grounded to sort of roll up your sleeves and do your thing in other parts of your life. And I think that can go. I think it's way different if you move into the US ecosystem of startups. That is definitely a different type of set. I would say I'm exposed to that, but I'm not exposed to that on a daily basis. And I definitely see, and I have a lot of startup friends, co-founders, CEOs in Europe, US based startups that is sort of just coming back and laughing about this. Everybody treats me like a god because I'm a founder, and I'm not. And it's sort of but I can definitely see how the surroundings
Mm,
are impacting you, and I think it's important to stay grounded and sort of just remember that everybody's just we are all human beings, and we all play different roles, and nobody's
yeah.
more important than the other.
I find that one thing I noticed about Unleashed is that you're all remote, right? And
Correct.
so when you just talked about we're all human beings and all of that, that's one of the things that people find difficult with remote work, is like
Yeah.
feeling that human connection and sensing how people are feeling in these calls. Have you
Uh,
found anything that helps you with that, or in the organization that helps you with that?
100%. I think it's real, and I think this is sort of the catch 22 of today after post COVID, because It's definitely one of the things that I know multiple of our employees, and including myself, time to time, feel you're kind of it's very efficient to work over video, right? Because you don't need to commute in and out of the office. You are saving a lot of time in that, and it just makes life easier. At the same time, you lose out of that sort of personal connections, that sort of
Mm.
the chit chat by coffee machine and all of that sort of stuff that everybody kind of jokes about. And I say jokes because I come from a place where I was really focused on, the execution, just want to get the work done, super serious, very professional, yada, yada, yada. But
Yeah.
being now firstly remote first, I definitely feel that sort of loneliness, not coming into office every day. And sort of, even if I'm coming to office, there is just that number of people in office. And I misses out on that, sort of having those sort of bigger environment where you can socialize and have the jokes, and somebody that you don't work with in a daily life you really connect well with as a friend, or kind of a closer to a friend type
Mm.
of a relationship. So I would say, how do we do that? We have tried to do quite a bit of different things. What I do see is our engineering team, I think, has done that the best. They have this digital platform where they meet this sort of and really looks like the 80s type of game, where you have small avatars that is moving around in an office, and they can go next to you, and then it pops up a video and you can start having conversations. So it sort of mimics
Ah,
something
okay.
closer to, and I think they're pretty okay with that. And also, I think we try to be open about this, sort of sharing
Yeah.
this on a personal level. It's also I've been much more active, reaching out to sort of friends and past colleagues, and sort of anyone in my network, saying, "Hey, do you want to meet for lunch?" And
Yeah.
those meetings means a lot, and I really want to I prioritize those really high, to kind of make sure to get out of
Mm.
my home and sort of into the city, and sort of see other people
Do you think
on a weekly basis.
Do you think that's easier or different for people who are, you're senior and you've had this long career, not like you've had a decade or more of your career before this, so you're already established and you have this confidence. When you look at the very junior people, do you see any differences?
I don't see any immediate differences. But then again, I'm not too much on a daily basis exposed to our more junior people.
Mm.
I know that the manager that is running the most junior team is very active on making sure to at least check in with everybody on a daily basis, and so forth. So I am super happy that he's so cautious about that.
Yeah, that's great.
But I would say, and I think we saw this during COVID. One of the I think that for those people during COVID that was sort of living maybe a bit outside of the city, where you had an opportunity to get outside in the garden, sort of had a family around you, there was more people in your daily life that you had some personal interaction, was sort of coping with this situation a bit better than those living by themselves in then smaller apartments, not allowed to go around. So that
Yeah,
was the extreme version. And for obvious reason, I would say, when you are fresh out of college and you are doing your first gig, you are looking for a more kind of social life for sure, right? So
mm,
you want to hang out with your colleagues and that type of stuff. So I think there's definitely something to that.
yeah, yeah,
At the
yeah.
same time, I would say the catch side, or the flip side of the same, is more and more younger people I'm talking to, in particular in the US, they're upfront saying, I'm not going to work for a company that require me to be in office. I don't want to spend two
Mm,
hours commuting in and out of the city. So it's sort of, I definitely have been discussing with my co-founder a few times, should we sort of pivot towards more in office type of policy, and sort of start building
yeah,
up
yeah.
that as a strategy, which sort of makes sense. At the same time, I definitely see more and more in the professional life don't want to be in office, and we also see that on social media, people
Mm.
really not enjoying those corporates requiring them to be in office on a daily basis.
Yeah, so it sounds like
So it's hard.
the culture that you build with this combination of humility and being able to face up to mistakes and talk about things, but then also being open about the fact that we're not together physically, and so
Yeah,
how are you doing and
yeah,
all that sort of stuff is sort of like part of that compensation for this. And sort of like they fit together well, and if you
yeah,
didn't have that culture, it might not work so well.
yeah. Yeah, it's true, and at the same time, you can just do so much. So obviously, we also have company offsites. We bring people together occasionally, but then again, it's like in a biannual basis, we do one company annually, and then we do more kind of a team-based media. So it's sort
Yeah.
of it. I know that that this is sort of a big event for everybody, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, we're going to this nice place and we're spending a full week together and really going to get a lot of energy out of that." But then again, you can take that energy and that lasts for a couple of weeks, and so you need to sort of have that daily healthy basis,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is super hard. I'm really open for feedback of improvements because I think we're doing a lot, but I definitely know we can do more.
Yeah, interesting. Well, if anyone's watching this and has ideas for how Egil and other
Yeah, I
managers
would
can,
love. I mean, please reach out on LinkedIn or whatever.
excellent. Well, that's a good transition. How can we find you? How are we get in contact? How do we learn more about Unleashed?
Unleash, we are of course on online getunleash.io, and also on LinkedIn. You can find myself and our page there. So feel free to DM or get in touch. We would love to engage with you guys.
Excellent. And if there's something that the audience can help with, what would it be?
Remote work, how to get people
Yeah,
enjoy working remotely, and how do you balance that with social life,
excellent.
and is there any hacks that really works well? I would love to know more about those.
Cool. Well, look, Egil, thank you very much. Really enjoyed getting to know you a bit on this call. Um, uh,
For having me. It's been an exciting conversation, Richard.